not look good. They've played 1.5 quarter of good football in the last month, and I totally understand it.
This is out of necessity, not out of privilege. We've seen teams do this because they have the benefit of doing it. This is needed for Pittsburgh.
Good morning. This is Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and just tell your smart speaker to play ESPN. We are Shay and Jordan Cornette coming to you from ESPN Studios. Hope everyone is having a great morning so far.
Just started for them.
We're waking up,
good morning,
opening our eyes, feeling alert.
How do you feel?
Don't do that.
Some mornings you say, give me the first 20 minutes of the show to get ready. Are you ready for tip time here?
I don't know. I'm crushing my orange juice here. Hopefully the sugar kicks in within the next...
Crushing OJ. We're getting nutty.
I know, really living on the edge these days. Let me tell you. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests of Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin join us on the Goodyear hotline. All right, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. So, found out yesterday that Mike Tomlin has other plans as far as starting his starting quarterback, Big Ben Roethlisberger. I'll let Mike Tomlin explain. Here is Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin.
I don't want to make this seem like it's a preseason game. As I mentioned, Ben is the only guy that I'm willing to acknowledge that will not play in this game. So this is no preseason game where we're playing backups, where we have player 54 through 75 to evaluate and things of that nature. We got one NFL football team. That NFL football team will go play, minus Ben and maybe another guy or two. And so I don't want to make more out of it than what it is from that perspective.
Okay, so no Big Ben this weekend against the Browns. The Steelers have already clinched the AFC North title, so it'll be Mason Rudolph that gets the start for the Pittsburgh Steelers in place of Big Ben. This will be Mason's first start this season. We obviously have seen Mason Rudolph in years past. And again, the Steelers are going to face the Cleveland Browns this weekend. It's a situation where the Browns have to win to get into the playoffs. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this, which I'll get to in a minute. But Jordan, I'll let you have the floor first. I'm just feeling generous right now.
I appreciate that, Shay. Look, this is the right decision. It's a no-brainer for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Big Ben had season-ending shoulder surgery last year. Big Ben is 38 years old. As the Steelers go, so does Big Ben.
You're about his age.
Yeah, I feel like that's young in life, in sports. It's not so young.
Late.
37. He's got a year on me, by the way. But at the end of the day, look, this is a guy who's fragile. To preserve Big Ben's career, you got to keep him healthy. To preserve his postseason, you have to keep him healthy. You're facing a Browns team that is in a situation where they need to win to get into these playoffs.
Correct.
They need to win to get into these playoffs. And you know who has a big say on if the Browns win this game? 6'4", 271-pound Myles Garrett coming off the edge. One of the best guys at getting to the quarterback in the NFL. He would probably have more sacks than T.J. Watt if he didn't sit 2 games due to injury, and yet he still sits 6th on the list in sacks. Why I mention Myles Garrett? Because he's going to try to have an impact on this game to win it for the Browns on the defensive side of things. How does Myles Garrett win games? By getting to the quarterback. If you're going to allow the chance for Myles Garrett to get to Big Ben Roethlisberger with that Steelers offensive line and how it's looked, you're playing with fire. The right decision here is to sit Big Ben, preserve his health, and allow him to go out there, whoever you face in the playoffs, and deliver. But to roll the dice with that defense of Cleveland, with Myles Garrett and his ability, knowing what your offensive line has been this year, porous, you are really taking a risk. It's the proper decision. Go ahead and offer up Mason Rudolph. Let him go out there versus Myles Garrett. It won't be about those two in that matchup. It'll be about the Browns, the culture change, their maturity, and how they can win the game. And a lot of it might come from the defensive side of things. Proper decision for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers.
So I agree with all of that. I also understand all of that. And I'm going to add to your point and then be controversial about it. So
I like controversy.
What I like what you said, I agree with. Yes, he's older. He's a quarterback that has played a lot of football in his day, and they've played a lot of football this year. The Steelers are one team that had a bye very early on because of the Titans having an outbreak issue. So their bye has not come at the critical time when usually a bye in the NFL comes. And so they're tired. They've played a lot of games. There was like three games in 12 days.
4 games in 19 days.
Exactly. You've always been better with numbers than I have. So exactly. They've played a lot of football over the last month or so. Mm-hmm. Rest, a necessity. I get all that. However, the offense specifically for the Pittsburgh Steelers has struggled in the last 4 games, really. I'll call it 3.5 because I think the second half of the Colts game was good by the
But
offense.
what was the difference in that game?
The offense.
Why was the offense different?
Because Big Ben was playing better and finding his receivers and they weren't dropping footballs.
Because Big Ben was calling plays. The offensive coordinator there for the Steelers, Randy Fichtner, nobody's really talking about his inability and lack of creativity and his hesitancy to go vertical. Well, when Big Ben said in that second half, I feel like the Colts know exactly what's coming this first half, and we're getting buried. I'm going to go back to, how he likes to say, draw the plays up in the dirt. Well, that's what Big Ben started doing in that second half, and that offense, like you're saying, Shay, took off, and they overcame a 17-point deficit. That's where I think they need to take this time off this week with Big Ben and the offensive coordinator, Randy Fichtner, and try to get right on what their approach is going to be in the postseason.
Okay, fair.
I think that's also a big part of what may play in here, not to the decision, but what they need to improve upon as they go into the postseason.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree with that at all. However, I mean, not to sound corny, practice makes perfect here. And this is a team that has struggled mightily in their last 3.5 football games. So to rest your quarterback, your leader, the guy who's calling plays and being the magician of this offense, to me, I don't know is the smartest move. Should he play the whole game? No. I don't think that at all. I think he's earned the right after being in this league for as long as he has to sit back and watch a little bit. But I think sitting him for the entire game when you're heading into the playoffs, playoffs, by the way, that you said you didn't even see the Steelers winning one game in, it would make sense for Big Ben to go out there, help dust off the rust, continue to call plays, continue to get the offense right and have everyone on the same page. And on top of that, since you have this great chemistry with your receivers, let's make sure they don't drop footballs too when you're throwing them passes. Everyone's together here, and then you can sit in the second half if you feel like you're in a good spot. I'm okay with that.
Deontay Johnson feels called out, but he's also been delivering. So I think that may be in the rear view, hopefully, if you're a Steelers fan. Shay, the guy's played a ton of football. He has a Hall of Fame career, Big Ben. He's played 15 games this season. This game does not impact what his rust will or won't be. He'll be ready for the playoffs because he's won Super Bowls, because he's a Hall of Famer. And who he's going to be in these playoffs is who he's going to be in these playoffs. That being said, I don't have the highest confidence in him, but Steeler fans, more importantly, the guys inside the building there with the Steelers, have great faith that whether he plays this week or not, Big Ben's going to go out there and do what Big Ben's destined to do, good or bad in these playoffs. This has no impact on it. Bigger than that, though, you look at these other teams. Take your pick. Arizona, Washington, the Los Angeles Rams. These 3 teams are in position that feels like a playoff atmosphere here in Week 17 where they have to win the game and then hope for some other things to happen so they make it into the postseason. You know what they're going to be doing it without? Most likely all 3 of those teams I mentioned without their starting quarterback.
Yep.
And Big Ben means more than those 3 combined do to their teams. So when Mike Tomlin just decides to survey the NFL landscape and sees what's going on in Week 17, why would he want to dip his toes in that water to find out if it's chilly or warm? He's not going to. He's going to say, I'm going to keep Big Ben dry off to the side, let Adult Swim happen, and then I'm going to get back in that pool, jump in, and have some fun in the postseason. But I'm not rolling the dice, and I don't blame him.
Okay, fair enough. On the other side, though, what does this say for the Browns? The Browns are in a must-win situation, as I mentioned, and they're going up a Pittsburgh Steelers team now that's not going to have their starting quarterback. Oh, and by the way, they're coming off a loss to the Jets, which if had they just beaten the Jets, they wouldn't even be in this must-win situation. So now what happens? Baker Mayfield needs to go out and have a fantastic game. The Browns have to win it. I don't care about the drought that they've had where they haven't been in the playoffs and they haven't had a season like they've had in forever. Now it's time to show that you deserve to be there. Now it's time for you to say, we don't need Big Ben in or out. We are the better football team in comparison to the Steelers.